10 generations, almost 50 years in production, more than 25 million units sold, and many successes in competition. This is the presentation card of the Honda Civic. For many, it's something like the Japanese Golf, for others, it's better than the Golf, and for everyone, it's a living legend in automotive history. Welcome to a tight grip. I don't know anyone, who doesn't like the Honda Civic. It doesn't matter if they're enthusiasts or not, experts in automobiles or not, a fan of Japanese cars or a fan of other types of cars. The Civic is such a special car, with so many versions and so unique that surely, there's one that suits your taste. This video was requested by a viewer whose name sounds like a secret agent. The name is Ingwil SK. But honestly, I would have done this video anyway because a video on the Honda Civic needed to be made for 3 reasons. I'm not one to make sweeping statements, but here's my opinion. The first reason, all Honda Civics, from the first to the last, have always stood out for their high build quality. The second reason, they have always been technologically advanced. All Civics, from the first to the last, are. And the third reason, which I'll spend a bit more time on, is that the Civic has been incredibly faithful to itself. I'll explain what I mean by this because I think it's one of the characteristics that best define the Civic. I'm not going to compare it to the Golf, but for example, the Golf has had engines with 4, 5, and 6 cylinders, turbochargers, and all-wheel drive. There's been a variety of technical versions, but let's do an exercise. Let's compare the Golf Mk1 with the latest Golf. They're not the same car, but they have an unmistakable family resemblance. Each generation is an evolution of the previous one. Marketing experts say that's great because it keeps the brand identity. But for me, honestly, it's a bit boring. If I had a Golf and loved it, I wouldn't feel the need to buy a newer model because they all feel the same. Now, it's clear that while the Golf might not sweep you off your feet, it's a solid car. But the Civic is a very different car. It's evolved so much from one generation to the next. Except for the first and second, and maybe the fifth and sixth, each generation is very distinct from the others. But before diving into the different Civic generations, I want to emphasize something important. I have a soft spot for brands whose leaders are not only good managers, but are also engineers and technical experts. That's the case with Honda. The founder, Soichiro Honda, was more of an engineer than a businessman. This engineering tradition has always been strong at Honda. Now, let's get into the 10 generations of the Civic. First generation, the first Civic, and this is the last time I'll mention the Golf, sorry, I can't resist, came 2 years before the Golf. The Civic was revolutionary. It was refined, affordable, economical, and fun to drive. In the US, it was a hit, partly because it was the first car to meet the EPA's stringent environmental standards, earning the title of the most fuel-efficient car for 4 consecutive years. It also came in sporty versions, initially called RS. In Spain, this first Civic was a rarity, mainly due to the high import tariffs, although you could find it in the Canary Islands. Second generation, the second generation was very much a continuation of the first, with improvements here and there, but overall a gentle evolution. Third generation, this marked a significant shift, particularly in size. It grew larger inside and out, and its design became more angular and modern. By this time, Honda was deeply involved in Formula One, and you could start to see some of that technology trickling down to their road cars. Fourth generation, the fourth generation brought a major technological milestone with the introduction of the VTEC system, which stands for Variable Valve Timing and Lift Electronic Control. It allowed Honda to create high-revving engines with excellent power output without compromising low-end torque. Fifth generation, this is, in my opinion, the most beautiful and balanced Civic. Its interior still had room for improvement in terms of aesthetics, but mechanically, it was superb. The 160 horsepower VTEC version, in particular, was refined, powerful, and a joy to drive. This generation also made its mark in racing, especially with liveries like the iconic Castrol colors. Sixth generation, here we saw the introduction of sedan versions, which I personally found less attractive. This generation also introduced a continuously variable transmission, CVT, a system similar to that used in mopeds, with 2 conical pulleys and a metal belt. 7th generation. This generation was a success, partly because of its design, which was a complete departure from the past. It also grew larger, especially in the interior, addressing some of the previous issues with space. The Type R version, with 200 horsepower, was introduced, a car I had the chance to drive both on the road and on the track, and it was a blast. 8th generation. Honda took a bold step with the design of the 8th generation Civic. Its futuristic look earned it the nickname the UFO. It was a risky design, but it eventually won people over, though it didn't achieve massive success. 9th generation. In response to the criticism of the 8th generation's design, Honda went for a more conventional look with the 9th generation. This was also the first time a diesel engine became available in the Civic lineup. 10th generation. With the 10th generation, Honda broke away from its past, both in terms of design and technology. This generation introduced turbocharged engines and 3-cylinder options. It's a strikingly modern car, and time will tell how it holds up. But for me, the most exciting thing about this generation is the 2017 Type R. For the first time, the Civic combined its VTEC technology with a turbo, producing a spectacular 320 horsepower. This model, with its 20-inch BBS wheels and race-ready chassis, is destined to be a future classic.